Welcome to multiple choice question 7 of the 2008 Mathematical Methods Exam 2. In this video we will be looking at the solution for this question. A reminder that this video is in no way endorsed by VCAA. And now before we move on, I'd just like to point out that the use of a CAS calculator may assist in answering this question, but it's not essential, and in fact you'll see that when we do use the calculator, it can give us some different versions of the answer, which you've then got to be careful to interpret correctly. So for question 7, it says the inverse of the function f with a domain of real positives for the rule f of x equals 1 on the square root of x minus 3 is one of the following options. And to find the inverse of a function, we actually swap x and y. So the f of x would be essentially y equals. So therefore we get x equals 1 on the square root of y minus 3. And in a moment, we'll go ahead and solve that on a calculator. But for now, I'm actually going to step through this just by hand to start with. So our next step would be to solve for y. So we can start by adding 3 to both sides. So therefore, we'd get x plus 3 is equal to 1 on the square root of y. And then we could multiply by the square root of y. So you'd get the square root of y being multiplied by x plus 3 is equal to 1. And then we can divide by the x plus 3. So we have the square root of y equals 1 on x plus 3. And then in our last step, we just want to square both sides to get y by itself. But now instead of having y, we want to replace y with f inverse so that we're using the correct notation. So we find that f inverse of x is equal to, and then squaring a fraction, we just square the top line. So 1 squared is 1. And then on the bottom line, we get x plus 3 all squared. And looking through the options, we can see that D is the correct answer for this question, because luckily all of those rules are different. But we will see in a moment on the calculator that the domain of -3 to infinity does match as the correct domain for the inverse, as it was the range of the original. On the CAS calculator, go into the main menu. Next, we want to write in the rule with x and y swapped. So we're actually going to have x equals, and then keyboard and bringing up a fraction, we'll have 1 divided by, and then it needs to be the square root of y when we swap x and y. And then at the end of that, we need a -3. We can now highlight that and go interactive equation inequality solve, and we want to solve for y, so we get y equals. And we actually end up with this expression on the calculator. So looking through the options, it's likely to be C or D. And to work out which one it is, we just need to factorize the bottom line of that equation. And some of you might see straight away that it would be x plus 3 all squared. But if you needed to, you could drag that down and then go interactive transformation factor. And then that would say that y is 1 on x plus 3 all squared would be the answer for this question. But I will just point out that the danger of doing that line is thinking that A is the correct answer. So just be careful that it was, if I highlight it, 1 on that quadratic. So our answer needs to be 1 on x plus 3 all squared. Now another thing our calculator could do for us if you wanted is if we go back and put it in as the original rule. So if I drag this down and replace that y with x, if we were to sketch this and we drag that down, that would give us a look at the original graph. And then going analysis sketch inverse would draw the inverse graph on there for us. And that gives us an indication that the domain of the inverse is going to be from -3 to infinity, which matches option D. And from the examiner's report, we can see that this question was really quite well done, with 89% of students getting the correct answer for that question.